Hello, everyone. In this podcast, we will be discussing sensitive topics such as sexual assault. It's important to take care of yourself while listening. Some suggestions are listening while you're in a healthy headspace or knowing who you can reach out to if you become upset. Our 24/7 helpline for crisis calls based out of Central Florida is 407-500-HEAL. By contacting the national hotline at 1-800-656-4673, you can get support and learn about your local resources. There's always someone ready to help.
Welcome to the Victim Service Center podcast. Here we sit down with professionals that serve survivors and victims of trauma, or those who've experienced violence, and have conversations about social issues. This week, we are talking about Denim Day. My name is Emilie Mitchell, and I am the Education Coordinator at the Victim Service Center. With me today, I have Adela Hathaway. Adela is a mental health counselor and managing partner at Congruity Counseling. She has served on the VSC board since 2011 and is the current Vice Chairperson. Adela, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I also have with me Lui Damiani. Lui is Executive Director of the Victim Service Center of Central Florida. His professional career is business and public service spans more than 30 years, having served the Central Florida community as a county commissioner, corporate executive, small business owner, governmental manager, television host, and homeowners association president. He has a master's degree in public administration from the University of Central Florida, and he did his undergraduate studies at the Ohio State University. Lui, thank you also so much for being here today.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
So today, what we are looking to explore in this episode is what is Denim Day and why is it important? This episode will actually be coming out on Denim Day itself. With that in mind, I wanted to start off with Lui giving us some history about Denim Day. So Lui, could you go over the background of Denim Day and why you think it is still relevant and important today?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the Denim Day movement actually started in Italy. I think it's about 20 years ago. It was in the 90s, actually, and it surrounded a case of a young woman who was sexually assaulted by her taxi cab driver, and he was caught and put in jail, convicted of the crime, and he appealed his conviction, and ultimately it made it to the Italian Supreme Court, where the court overturned his conviction, effectively finding that because she had on tight blue jeans, that somehow she was complicit in her assault. She must have helped get her jeans off, so she was equally guilty. The women in Parliament went crazy and began protesting, began wearing jeans in solidarity with the victim, and just it turned into an Italian movement, which turned into a European movement, and then eventually it spread to the United States, where always now on the last Wednesday of April is what's called Denim Day USA, and we picked up on it, I guess. Gosh, we've been here in Central Florida maybe 5 years ago, perhaps. We were looking for something else we could do during the month of April, which is National Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and that would really help generate some conversation and dialogue and bring awareness to sexual violence here in Central Florida. So we did. We went. I think I went first to Orange County government, and I said to the mayor, hey, we want to do this awareness day, and it's a national movement, and could we get your support? And immediately was Mayor Jacobs at the time, and she said, absolutely, you can count on us. And it just spiraled from there. Within a couple of years, every one of the local county governments, Orange, Osceola County, Seminole County, City of Orlando, Lynx even had their bus drivers out wearing denim. On this last Wednesday of April, we got them all to declare the day as Denim Day, and they still do, by the way. I mean, now almost every local government, all the cities, municipalities, but then the other cool thing is private companies as well. The Orange County School Board, they all are recognizing Denim Day, and it's neat. And I'm sure we'll talk more about this, but it gives. I think we had 70 businesses even last year that participated, and it creates this atmosphere where everybody's wearing jeans, everybody's forcing a conversation about sexual violence in our community, and how we're not going to tolerate it as a community. And so it's been a really just a neat opportunity for our community to really get engaged and have a specific day dedicated to sexual assault awareness.
Perfect. Thank you so much for shedding light on that, Lui. Adela, did you have any comments about why you think Denim Day is still relevant and important today?
I think the big thing when we're talking about sexual assault and rape is just being able to have a conversation. It's an uncomfortable conversation. People don't want to discuss it. And Denim Day is a nice conduit that kind of allows us to talk about why this is important and why it helps to also empower victims of sexual assault and gives them a voice when they oftentimes have not had one previously. So I think that with Denim Day, it just gives us that opportunity to have a conversation. And that in and of itself offers so much in awareness and in education and prevention that I think that it's really pivotal for us to kind of still hold on to that.
It's cool because, you're absolutely right. It's the conversation and just the mechanism, the wearing of blue jeans. Who'd have thought such a simple act? But, it's the middle of a work week. Most of these businesses, Lynx bus drivers, whomever, they're not wearing jeans and, on a bus. And people turn their head and go, why is everybody wearing jeans today? Like, what's happening? Right. And that's the impetus that starts the conversation. And then to take it a step further, we ask then all of those organizations that do that will take your work group outside or find a space and take a picture of everybody together and then post it, to social media and tag us. And it creates this whole virtual universe of people communicating and talking about it, and really gets a buzz going. It's just a great way to draw a whole bunch of awareness that we never had before, like this public conversation that we never had before. It's pretty neat.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see how many people actually get out of their yoga pants this year and put it on jeans.
Jeans on. It's going to be too much of an effort. Man,
it's going to be a lot.
That's a great idea. We should sell denim yoga pants. Oh, shoot. Missed it.
I know.
That's a good point. I feel like this year denim will almost feel more professional than what we're actually.
I think it might.
Instead of a dressing down, we're dressing up for sure.
I'm really hoping people make videos and stuff this year and post them and really, help it to sort of snowball, since everybody is home online right now.
Well, I think the real opportunity too we would have with Denim Day and stuff like this is, families are home, and if you can get families to kind of take pictures of their family, family photos on jeans and trying to do, the self-distancing and quarantine thing, we might actually have quite a bit of energy kind of going with that, because I think people really want to feel a sense of community right now, and that we could probably capitalize on that pretty well.
That's a great point. Good idea.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into another question I had, which was, I know other communities, including organizations, including the VSC, have celebrated Denim Day, like taking group photos together and stuff like that. And in this time of distancing, how can people still participate in Denim Day at home?
Yeah, I think as Adela said, the taking the photo. I mean, really, just getting all the cats herded to get in a photo is if we can get everybody to do that. I mean, imagine the number of pictures and participants that we would have rolling in and tagging us, and then also exposing our message to their social networks.
Absolutely. And also kind of getting, like I said, getting your children involved. I mean, not in exactly what it is, but, I think it's very important for people to kind of get their kids involved with understanding being a part of a community and being there for their other community partners. I know Blake, we've taken him down to the Coalition for the Homeless. We've taken him into the VSC before, because I want him to understand the importance of giving back and community. And I think that this is a perfect time to be able to have that conversation too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this year's Denim Day might look a little different, but also that bringing together is still going to be a central theme, I think, of Denim Day. I also really appreciate that Denim Day almost looks like not only are you starting the conversation, but I remember one of my colleagues at the VSC mentioned it as you're telling survivors that you're a safe person. And I really appreciate that too about Denim Day. I also wanted to ask Adela, what does Denim Day represent in the mental health field?
So one of the things that I've done with some of my clients in the past, any clients that come to me with sexual assault, whether it's when they were a child or if it's kind of an acute situation, they don't have a voice oftentimes. So I have told them in the past that Denim Day is a great way to kind of show yourself a little bit of empowerment, show some self-love, and make it be like the first step of, hey, you know what, I can stand up for this, and this is what I'm kind of representing. And surprisingly, it does allow them to start conversations with people that are around them and their families, and they don't need to necessarily not to share their own story, but at least feel like somebody cares to hear a story. And I think that that's something that victims need to understand and feel comfortable with, just in any way, shape, or form in their daily life, because this is now a part of what has happened to them. So that is usually what I've used it for in the past, especially with clients that I've worked with. And then I know for other things, as Lui was saying before, with businesses and stuff like that, there's other businesses, like I've asked my husband's firm to kind of do stuff with Denim Day. My own group has done stuff with Denim Day, just taking pictures and posting them. So I think that that's just, it continues a conversation. It continues to allow victims to feel a level of empowerment and that they will be heard and that people care about what they've gone through. And I think that that's really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing that has been interesting as more private companies have been engaged and engaging their employees, all of a sudden I started getting the donations of cash donations that were being, I saw them rolling in to our website portal. And I was like, what is this? And I found out they were running their own fundraising campaigns at their offices, charging people $2 or $5 to wear jeans to work that day, and then collecting all the money and then making a donation online to us, which was great. We didn't ask for it, although I strongly encourage it. But it was just a really unintended consequence that was neat. And yet another way that people felt like that they could make a difference on Denim Day.
That's awesome. I had no idea about that. That's really cool. I also wanted to check in with, what about people who, community members that have to wear a uniform, like law enforcement? How do you engage community members from those different groups?
That's actually a great question. And we learned, because of course, we asked everybody to participate, and it was then, our current mayor, Mayor Demings, he was the sheriff, and at the time, he was like, "Hey, Louis, these are uniformed personnel. Of course, they can't wear jeans, but we want to support you. We're going to have our non-uniformed people. Certainly, they can wear jeans that day." And so it stuck with me, and I was like, man, we got to come up with something. So the next year, and we gave that challenge to our volunteers, and the next year our volunteers went out. They got, old jeans, Goodwill or wherever, people donated. They cut them all up, and they made ribbons, the little, I don't know, what is that?
It was like a jean ribbon, yeah, I remember what we did with those.
Yeah, and we got
it around, and we can hand them out.
Yeah, we got the little pin backs that we bought from I don't know, some online supplier, and they made those ribbons, and we took them and hand delivered them to the law enforcement and took them straight to the sheriff's office and stuff and gave them to them, and they were like, this is so cool. So they were wearing them on their uniforms, on their lapel with above their name tags and that kind of thing. So we took them, we gave them to all the sheriffs, we gave them to the police chiefs. Then we started getting requests of, hey, can you give us enough for all of our street patrol? I mean, like we were making hundreds of them. So we still do that. Some of the law enforcement agencies already know enough in advance, and they're like, hey, can you get us, 50 for next year? And, by the way, because they're made out of blue jean, they can just throw them in their desk drawer and then they wear them from year to year. So that's been super popular, and we have those, and the more we know that people want them, the more it's another project for our volunteers to be able sort of to do during the off months as we generate those, which, by the way, we not only take those requests and fill those, but anybody can go onto our website. And I forgot to mention this, but we have an entire page. So if you go to victimservicecenter.org, this thing got so popular, we had to build our own page. And in fact, we built our own video. There's a little 2-minute video that's super cool that's, on our YouTube channel that you can watch that talks about Denim Day. But you can also download your own posters about Denim Day if you wanted to put them around your workplace. Let's say you still put them in the cafeteria and stuff to let people know, to advertise that it's coming up. But then you can also order these you press a little button and you order these little adhesive decals that people would wear on their chest that says, I support Denim Day, ask me why. And we buy those by the tens of thousands. And then as long as people communicate to us in advance that they want some, we'll drop them in an envelope and we'll put them in the mail to them. And all this stuff is free of charge. And then somebody usually at the office will get that envelope and they'll pass them around to folks on Denim Day. And, it's just even one more reason why the people who were not dialed in and not paying attention, all of a sudden they see the decal and they're like, wait, what am I supposed to ask you about denim? What is it? And then they tell the story and then they engage in the conversation, and it just works. It's easy. It's been one of the more successful things that we've done to generate awareness. I mean, we put up billboards, we go out in the community, we do all kinds of stuff, right? But this one thing is one that people just kind of gravitate around, and it's been very, very popular.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really cool. Different ways that you could get involved on Denim Day. It seems like it's kind of like an easy thing to do, wear jeans or wear this ribbon, but it means so much, I think. And it really starts the conversation. And part of that conversation is actually, centered around victim blaming. So I kind of wanted to throw that out, why victim blaming is so harmful to survivors of sexual violence. And what advice do either of you have to share so people can avoid victim blaming?
So, in what I do, when we talk about victim blaming, if we're talking about sexual assault or molestation or rape, however you want to package it, the reality is there's a lot of shame and there's a lot of fear that kind of goes around it. And then if you go in to talk to somebody and the first questions they start asking are kind of questions that are are angled in a way that make it sound like they don't believe you and that they're actually having to fight to be believed. And with victim blaming, what happens is, if I'll give you an example. Somebody comes into your office and they say they've been sexually assaulted, and your first question is, well, what area of town were you in, and what were you wearing, and did you have anything to drink? This automatically takes all of the blame that you would normally put on the perpetrator and places it on the victim. And then that makes them not want to come forward and not tell their story and not be heard and not press charges. So it can be very damaging, especially in these times of trauma, to do this to anybody, because it continues the conversation of, we don't have to believe you and we don't have to press forward. And that's one of the reasons I think Denim Day is also so huge, is here this woman came forward in Italy, she gets a verdict, it gets overturned, and what did that just do for her? It just told her that she wasn't going to be validated and she wasn't going to be heard. And then we wind up going into this whole movement where now everybody wants to go and wear jeans and say, no, we will hear you. So it's really important to make sure that blaming and shaming is totally discouraged if a victim comes forward, because this is the worst day of their life probably. And they are coming forward for help, not for judgment.
So true. I mean, Adela just knocked it out of the park. I mean, that's exactly the case. It can do so much damage when we don't believe individuals. And the fact of the matter is, like, it takes so much for an individual to come forward anyway. It just, from my world perspective, it just doesn't happen that people fabricate these kinds of stories. The fact of the matter is that at the Victim Service Center, the average client that comes to seek our service is 9 years after their event. So, that alone will tell you that people, because of guilt, shame, whatever the reason is, we can't add to the reasons why they don't want to come forward. And you're right, by immediately starting to say, well, like, in what universe did somebody ask to be assaulted, invite a physical assault against them? That is just old thinking, wrong thinking. And, to the greatest extent possible, we always start by believing. And if the people call our organization, they're always going to be believed. I mean, I don't have a single example where somebody that I know of, where somebody had reached out for our services, found it within them to reach out and get help, and it ended up being not true. So, we've got to reach out and try to help individuals. By the way, and Adela, you can probably speak to this better than me, the incidence of PTSD with sexual violence, specifically with rape victims, is one of the highest, if not the highest, there is. They say even people who turn for the military, which is kind of where you always hear about PTSD being a thing. It's people that have experienced sexual assault have the highest incidence of PTSD. So, that alone will tell you of the trauma and the impact and the shock of such a terrible crime. And then you add the layer of, oh, well, we don't believe you. Why were you at a bar having a drink? Well, so was the rest of the universe. Doesn't mean that that I wanted to get raped, for heaven's sakes. It's just we got to dispel those myths, and we've got to, and that's why Denim Day is so important, and that's why having these conversations and getting it out there in public. How many more of these cases do you want to turn on the TV and all of a sudden somebody is accused of this crime, and then 20 people from the past 20 years come forward and go, wow, the same thing happened to me. I mean, we've all seen it. When the reality is those things all did occur. They all happened. And for whatever reason, people kept to themselves because they didn't think that they were going to be believed, because because societally, people were turning it around like somehow it was their fault and their problem. And that's where I think this movement has such power that we have the ability to kind of turn that whole idea on its head and embrace people and let them know it's a safe zone and let them know that they can come forward. Because the fact is, and again, Adela, you know this better than me. Maybe you can share, like, the sooner people come forward and get help, the better it is for their healing journey. I mean, who wouldn't want to get their life back sooner rather than later?
Well, and what we see oftentimes with trauma, I mean, the whole point of people having issues with coming forward, it's not just the societal conversations and feeling that they're not going to be believed, but in trauma, your body has a fight or flight response. Okay, so when a trauma happens to you, what will happen is part of you shuts down just to be able to protect yourself. By the time you are okay to open up and be able to talk about that, if all of a sudden you were going to open up and talk about it and you're afraid that trauma isn't going to be believed, that's not going to give you an open door policy. And I think that that's what winds up spiraling so many things. And we oftentimes will see with sexual assault clients, we'll have a lot of other co-occurring disorders. We have depression, we have anxiety, we'll have oftentimes addiction. So the sooner somebody could feel like they can reach out for help and feel like they're ready to accept that help and be okay and be believed is imperative in their healing process.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of leads to my other question too, which, Adela, how do you as a mental health professional advocate for sexual assault awareness on Denim Day?
I think we touched on it briefly before, is that it's an easy way for clients that are just working through sexual assault issues to engage in the conversation without feeling like all eyes are on them. So when I've had clients in the past, I tell them about Denim Day. I say, it's a wonderful way for you to start feeling empowered after this has happened to you, if you want to engage in it. And oftentimes I will have them take pictures. They'll take pictures and send them to me just to say, okay, yep, I'm doing it today. I'm not ready to tell my story to anybody, and it's my story, but I'm wearing jeans today because I want people to know that I'm a part of that.
I hadn't heard that before, but that is super cool. I mean, isn't that great if you're feeling alone and isolated and you're the only one in the world that this has happened to, but then you're looking at the landscape and there's all these other supporters that are out there that is like, oh, wow, I can trust that person. That person is going to believe me. That person is with me. That's a pretty neat perspective.
Yeah, and I think and I started doing it a few years ago just because with clients, I mean, they won't tell their husbands, they won't tell their boyfriends, they will tell no one. They are coming to me, and oftentimes I'm the first person they've ever had that conversation with. So to then tell them to go and tell their story to somebody else, that's a scary thing. Wearing jeans, that I can do. It's a very small step, but it's a step in their path and their healing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we were talking about, how Denim Day also has the conversation of people coming together who have had similar experiences. And I kind of was starting to think of the hashtag #MeToo movement a little bit. And I wanted to kind of throw the question out there. If you think that the awareness, if there was an increase in the awareness of Denim Day within like the past couple years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that when we talk about the hashtag #MeToo movement, for so many years, and Lui, I think you would agree with me on this, we've had the difficulty of how do you open up this conversation that nobody wants to have, right? It's a scary thing. Like, I'll give money to the SPCA, they have puppies and kitties, and that's cute, and I can deal with that. Or everybody can feel bad for, the Cancer Society, and everybody knows somebody who's had a cancer, and I can give to that. But, let's talk about rape. That's a different thought.
There's no doubt. I mean, the Me Too movement, it's been a timing and coalescing of a whole bunch of different things simultaneously. There've been, at the same time that all that's happening, there were multiple high-profile cases in the news, and you couldn't. It almost got to a point where you couldn't turn on the news without hearing about some other case and somebody else that
some other famous person that's being called out. I mean,
and I can tell I've been here 7 years, and 7 years ago I could not get we couldn't have this conversation. I couldn't get a local media to cover us. which, by the way, last year we were on the front page of the Orlando Sentinel for Denim Day. I mean, that is huge.
Yes.
It never happened before, but people just wouldn't, they wouldn't engage. It was too salacious. It was too, this is not a topic that as a community we're ready to say exists. But then all of a sudden you can't turn on the TV because, it exists. And it exists in a major high profile way. And it's created, more of a culture of acceptance and like, okay, this is okay to talk about, because if we don't get it out here publicly and we don't talk about it publicly, then it's going to be the way it has always been. That's somebody else's problem. We're just going to keep it quiet. And it's going to continue. And victims are not going to come forward. Our numbers, I can tell you, our numbers exponentially increase year over year of people that are coming to get our services. That's not a bunch of more rapists on the street. That is people
getting help.
Getting help because A, they're aware of our services, but B, because I think there is a sense that they are going to be believed because of activities like this. They are saying, I think there are some good, well-intentioned people in the world, and maybe society is going to take me for real. And yeah, it is time for me to go and so it's all sort of congealing and getting, from my perspective, getting better in the sense that people are figuring it out, learning that our resources exist, and feeling confident to come get the help, knowing they're not going to be turned away, knowing that they're going to be believed, and that there's qualified people at the other end of the phone. We run a 24-hour helpline, which, by the way, that number is 407-500-HEAL. It's always picked up on the third ring by a master's level counselor that is never going to question you about anything, but going to listen to you and help you and make sure you're safe and try to help you get on the healing journey as fast as possible.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Lui. And you mentioned that, shifting gears here just a little bit, that, 7 years ago you joined the Victim Service Center. So I wanted to know if you could go over how you came to work at the Victim Service Center and what it means to you as an organization.
Oh, wow.
How much time do you have, Emilie? This is going to be a long.
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't want to bore anybody with that, but the bottom line is I worked for a lady. I came out of graduate school. I worked for a lady that was a county commissioner, and she walked in my office one day and said, "Man, we don't have a program that helps victims." She realized in her role as a local public servant, her name's Mary Johnson. She was the founder of the Victim Service Center. She said, "We got to start a program." And I was like, okay, wow, what do we do with that? And, before we knew it, we put together a task force. We involved all of our law enforcement partners, and we really kind of just started, a conversation about, do we want to have a victim service agency in our community, and what would that look like? And it took us a couple of years, but we got it operationalized. We got Orange County government to actually fund it for the first 2 years, with the caveat that the organization would learn to become a nonprofit. And in 1999, we opened our doors. I wasn't here. I mean, it was just a project to help it get up and running. And I went away and had a whole separate career, only to come back 7 years ago. And the board of directors was kind enough to invite me to take this role. And it's just been a labor of love. So I kind of had my fingerprints on it in the beginning, and then 7 years ago came back, and that was right at the time when everything was really just kind of taking off for us. In the last 7 years, we've doubled the size of the agency. We have 20 full-time people, equally as many contractors. We're serving thousands and thousands of people annually. Our number is close to 7,000 people a year now that seek our service, either through our helpline or through, our counseling and our therapy. It's just incredible. But thank you for asking. It's a passion of mine. Who wouldn't want to see something like this grow from I mean, I think the first year the organization maybe helped 400 people, and at that, it was amazing, right? That was 400 people that weren't getting service. And now you think fast forward 20 years and 7,000 people a year, and the numbers keep increasing. So it's a tremendous resource to have in the community. I couldn't be more proud to to just have my little part of being part of it. We have a team here that is truly second to none, that are amazing. And thank you for asking.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for sharing. I definitely second that. I'm really proud to be part of the VSC. And you did mention you have the board of directors here. So speaking of that, Adela, could you share how you came to be on the board, and what VSC means to you?
Absolutely. So funny enough, I was asked by one of the past board presidents about 9, almost 10 years ago. He said, look, I don't know what I'm doing, and I would like your help. And from a clinical perspective, and also from me being involved with other things in the community, he thought that I might be the right person to help plug in. So I started up. It was much smaller of an agency than it is now. We weren't offering counseling services to the degree we are now. And that has been a huge push of mine ever since I got on, because it is so important that people that need to have these services, because unfortunately in our current climate, counseling is a luxury. And I hate to say that being a counselor, but it is. And it's not the way it should be, but at the very least, victims of crimes and sexual assault especially deserve to have those services, and they need those services. And so I have been very, very passionate about that, and I've been very active as a board member to make sure that we, first off, can start having this conversation, and secondly, that we are going to be there for the people who need us. And that is why I'm so proud to be a part of it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's, I think you're right that unfortunately, counseling is seen as a luxury, but I'm really glad that places like the VSC keep that free for, survivors of any kind of trauma. That's, really important. Before we sign off here, I just wanted to check if either of you had anything else that you wanted to add.
No, I bet Adela doesn't even know this, but I was going to tell her I'm working on the annual report now. So you're talking about the therapy piece. And I know, because I've been here, right, with 7 years with you, and the board really moving us in that direction. We did over 2,500 therapy sessions last year.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
73 different groups.
That's incredible.
Just last fiscal year. Yeah, I mean, as you said, there was nothing.
There's nothing.
We weren't. That wasn't where we were, and
it wasn't the prime focus either. I think it was more, let's deal with the quick acute issue and then move on. And this is a long-standing issue. Anytime that we're looking at sexual assault and trauma.
Well, it continues to grow, and just what a tremendous resource we have, and it's all free. That's the part that's most mind-boggling. I mean, it's free to the client. Like we piece it together with a bunch of grants, and we ask people for donations and all that kind of thing. But as community-based resources go, it's just incredible, and our people are. It's just a miracle that we have what we have here in this community.
Yeah. How interesting is it, Lui, that think about you and I sitting around a table 7 years ago being told and tasked with building a fundraiser around sexual assault and how we were going to get that message out. And literally the conversation we had was, nobody's going to talk to us about sexual assault. So I said, great, let's give them cocktails. And we'll just get some facts that we can get to them so that they at least know our name, and we'll start spoon feeding it slowly. And now it's grown into this.
Wow. It's hard to believe. Well, I mean, I think probably Emilie is sensing all of our pride in the little bit that we've been able to build, and the opportunity to continue to to serve and grow this agency, and is just it's why I continue to get up every day, and I'm sure that's why people like Adela, who have dedicated multiple years to our board of directors and to our mission, continue to be with us. So thank you for your service to the board.
Thank you for allowing me to serve.
Yeah, I think I definitely got chills when you both were talking. So I definitely could feel the pride there. And I think this is actually a wonderful place to sign off here. So thank you both for, taking the time to sit down and chat with us for Denim Day. I also wanted to thank the listener for listening to the Victim Service Podcast. The VSC is a nonprofit organization that provides free confidential counseling, like Lui and Adela were mentioning, services for victims of any kind of trauma in Central Florida. To learn more about our services, please visit victimservicecenter.org. And to everyone listening, healing is not linear, and you are not alone. And thank you, Lui and Adela, once again for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.